Hello students, welcome to today's English class. I am Roopna Ravindran, Assistant Professor of English, Government Degree College, Chevalla in Rangareddy district of Telangana state. So today I am going to talk about the one-act play, The Dear Departed, written by famous British playwright Stanley Houghton. So this play is part of your general English curriculum for some textbook English Made Easy prescribed by Osmania University for BA, BCom and BSc students. So let's go to the next slide. Here we have the biographical information of the author Stanley Houghton. The full name of Stanley Houghton is William Stanley Houghton. William Stanley Houghton was an English playwright. He was one of the most promising British dramatists of his time. He was one of the best of Manchester School of Playwrights associated with that city's Gaiety Theatre. So he was a prominent member along with Ellen Monkhouse and Harold Bridgehouse of a group known as the Manchester School of Dramatists. So a number of Houghton's plays were produced, including The Dear Departed, published in 1908, The Younger Generation, published in 1910, and his most famous Hindlewags, published in 1912. So it is true that Hindlewags is his finest achievement. His other plays are also not to be ignored. They are also very well written and well received by the readers and also the viewers of the drama. He was actually seeking for a freedom of thought, liberty of thought, but not a liberty of dramatic form. He didn't experiment dramatic form. He was much concerned about the liberty of thought, and he had keen insight into human character. Let us go to the next slide. Here we have the early life and other biographical details of William Stanley Houghton. William Stanley Houghton was born in 1881 in Ashton upon Mersey, Cheshire. He was born on 22nd February 1881 and he died on 10th December 1913. He was the only son of his parents. In 1896, the family moved to Manchester. He was educated at Bowdoin College and at Manchester Grammar School. On leaving the school in 1897, he started working full-time in his father's cotton mill. His father had cotton business and he joined his father. And during that time, he was also known as an amateur actor and writer. He was not very experienced or very professional, but then he was an amateur actor and writer then. In 1905, he was an unpaid drama critic for the Manchester City News. Between 1905 to 1913, he contributed articles, theatrical notices and also literary reviews to the Manchester Guardian. He also supplemented his income by writing critical reviews for the Manchester Guardian. He also wrote many unpublished plays. It includes 3 one-act plays, 5 full-length plays, 1 short story, and books and film contracts also. The collection also contains certain stage photographs that he has taken during the performance of his plays. And even photos of his famous play Hindlewags are there in this collection. After the success of Hindlewags, which was first performed at the Aldwych Theatre in London, it led him to take up a playwriting in future. So it is the fame that he received from the performance of Hindlewig's, from the acceptance of Hindlewig's, that made him a full-time playwright in future. So his plays are set locally in northern England, but represent universal aspects of human nature. Certain writers that influenced him are Ibsen, George Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, and St. John Hankin. So now let us read about the play The Dear Departed. The Dear Departed was the first of many to be reproduced at the Gaiety Theatre. So it was performed at the Gaiety Theatre. The name of the theatre is Gaiety. It is a pungent satire on the moral degradation of British middle class society. So he has used the mode of satire to criticize the peripheral relationship and showy love between parents, siblings and children. Here you have the father figure, Abel Merriweather. He is very old person, and there are two sisters, his daughters, two sisters, Mrs. Slater and Mrs. Jordan. They are also very mean and materialistic in nature. After knowing about their father's death, they are not bothered about him. They don't have any feelings for him, but they are more concerned about the division of his belongings. When the old man says that he will leaving all his bit of things to whomsoever he is living with when he dies, they at once change their attitude and offer to have their father with them. So they never loved him. They fought with each other to get rid of their father. So this one-act play take place at the house of Slaters. The main characters are Abel Merriweather, the father and grandfather of two children, Victoria and Jimmy. And you have Mrs. Slater, Abel Merriweather's daughter, Henry Slater, Mrs. Slater's husband, Mrs. Jordan, Abel Merriweather's second daughter, and Ben Jordan, her husband. Victoria Slater is a girl of 10. She is the daughter of Mrs. and Mr. Slater. And you have Jordan's son, Jimmy. Now, let us read this play, The Dear Departed. Dear Departed is a one-act play written by William Stanley Houghton. So the play is taking place at the house of Slaters, Henry Slater and Mrs. Slater. Mrs. Slater sharply, Victoria, Victoria, do you hear? Come in, will you? Mrs. Slater is calling Victoria, her daughter. Mrs. Slater closes window and puts the blind straight and then returns to her work at the table. Victoria, a precocious girl of 10, dressed in colors, enters. Mrs. Slater, I am amazed at you, Victoria. I really am. How you can be galvanating about in the street with your grandfather lying dead and cold upstairs, I don't know. Be off now and change your dress before your Aunt Elizabeth and your Uncle Ben come. It would never do for them to find you in colors. So, Mrs. Slater's father, Mr. Abel Merriweather, passed away. So, he is lying dead upstairs, and Victoria, Abel Merriweather's granddaughter, is seen playing outside. So, her mother, Mrs. Slater, scolds her for playing outside when her grandfather is lying dead. She asks Victoria to go and change her dress to wear black dress and to not wear a dress in colors, because in Britain they don't wear color dress when somebody in their family passes away, when they are mourning. Victoria. What are they coming for? They haven't been here for ages. Mrs. Slater. They are coming to talk over poor grandpa's affairs. Your father sent them a telegram as soon as we found he was dead. A noise is heard. Good gracious, that's never them. Mrs. Slater hurries to the door and opens it. No, thank goodness, it is only your father. Henry Slater, a stooping heavy man with a drooping moustache, enters. He is wearing a black tailcoat, grey trousers, a black tie and a bowler hat. He carries a little paper parcel. So, Victoria is asking her mother, what are Mrs. Jordan and family coming for? They haven't come here since ages. So, why are they coming today? And Mrs. Slater says that her husband, Mr. Slater, Mr. Henry Slater, has telegrammed them to inform about the death of their father, Abel Merriweather. So that is the reason they are coming today to their home, and they need to discuss about certain affairs, certain things related to their father, that is Abel Merriweather. Henry, not come yet, eh? Mrs. Slater, you can see they haven't, can't you? Now Victoria, be off upstairs and that quick. Put your white frock on with a black sash. Victoria goes out. Mrs. Slater to Henry, I am not satisfied, but it is the best we can do till our new black is ready, and Ben and Elizabeth will never have thought about mourning yet. So we'll outshine them there. Henry sits in the armchair by the fire. Get your boots off, Henry. Elizabeth's that prying, she notices the least speck of dirt. Henry, I am wondering if they'll come at all. So they confirm that Mrs. Jordans have not come yet, and they are discussing about wearing new dress for the mourning ceremony. So they have ordered for new black dresses that they can wear for their father's funeral, and till then they can wear the white dress that they already have. So look at the situation. Their father is lying dead and they are least bothered about him. They don't have any feelings for their father, but they are more concerned about outshining their sister's family. So sister is not aware of the father's death, so she will not be prepared with new dress and all. These people knew the matter earlier. That is how they ordered for a new dress. So they are very much bothered about their looks than their dead father. When you and Elizabeth quarrelled, she said she would never set foot in your house again. Mrs. Slater, she'll come fast enough after her share of what grandfather's left. You know how hard she can be when she hikes. When she gets it from, I can't tell. Mrs. Slater unwraps a parcel Henry has bought. It contains sliced tongue which she puts on a dish on the table. I suppose it is in the family. What do you mean by that, Henry Slater? So, earlier these two sisters had a big fight about their father. They just wanted to get rid of their father from their house. So prior to staying at Mrs. Slater's house, Abel Merriweather stayed at Elizabeth's house. Elizabeth didn't want her father to be with her, so she just got rid of him from her house, and she asked later Mrs. Slater to take care of him. So During that time they had a big quarrel, they had a big fight, and after the fight Mrs. Jordan said that she will never come back to Mrs. Slater's house. So they are wondering if she will come here now for the funeral of her father. But then Mrs. Slater is very sure that she will come to get her share of her father's belongings. What do you mean by that, Henry Slater? I was referring to your father, not to you. Where are my slippers? Mrs. Slater, in the kitchen, but you want a new pair. Those old ones are nearly worn out, nearly breaking down. You don't seem to realize what it is costing me to bear up like I am doing. My heart's fit to break when I see the little trifles that belong to grandfather lying around and think he'll never use them again. Here, you'd better wear the slippers of grandfather's now. It's lucky he had just got a new pair. So, what a pathetic state. This Henry Slater is asking for slippers, and what his wife is saying, Mrs. Slater is saying that Henry Slater's slippers are very old. You can throw it and use the new slippers of their grandfather, of Abel Merriweather. So she just pretends that she is sad that her father is dead, but then she is not actually sad, and she is very much eager to steal whatever precious things that belongs to her father. Henry, they'll be very small for me, dear Mrs. Slater. They'll stretch, won't they? Then the poor husband says that his father's slippers, father-in-law's slippers will be very small for him. It will not fit him properly. But then Mrs. Slater is not ready to leave. She says that they'll stretch, won't they? I'm not going to have them wasted. So she can't waste them, and she can't even give it to somebody else. Even the slippers, imagine. She has finished laying the table. Henry, I have been thinking about that bureau of grandfather's that is in his bedroom. You know, I always wanted to have it after he died. Henry, you must arrange with Elizabeth when you are dividing things up. Mrs. Slater, Elizabeth is that sharp. She'll see I'm after it, and she'll drive a hard bargain over it. What it is to have a low money grubbing spirit. So they are discussing about a table, an office table, that is a bureau that their father owns. So this Mrs. Slater wants to own it after her father's lifetime. So her father is already dead, and before Elizabeth comes, she wants to own it, because if Elizabeth comes to their house, they will have a hard bargain over that bureau. They will have to literally bargain and then get it. Mrs. Slater, Elizabeth is that sharp, she'll see that I am after it, and she'll drive a hard bargain over it. What it is to have a low money grubbing spirit. Henry, perhaps she has got an eye on the bureau as well. Mrs. Slater, she has never been here since grandfather bought it. If it was only down here instead of in his room, she would never guess it wasn't our own. So, what are they deciding? So, we'll bring the bureau up from his room to downstairs, so that when Elizabeth comes, she will not know that it belongs to the dad. She will think that it belongs to Mrs. Slater, Mr. and Mrs. Slater. So they will not have to divide it among the sisters. So as it is not their father's property, as it will not look like their father's property, they will not have to divide that with their sister and family. Mrs. Slater, Henry, why shouldn't we bring that bureau down here now? We could do it before they come. So they are you can see they are very much worried about their father's belongings, so they don't want to share certain things with their sister's family. So what they are doing, before the sister and family arrives, they are planning to shift certain things to their room from Abel Merriweather's room, so that their sister and family will not notice that these things belong to their father. Henry, stupefied. I wouldn't care to. Mrs. Slater, don't look so daft. Why not? It doesn't seem delicate somehow. So it is a very heavy thing. It is not so easy to bring it from upstairs to our room. So let it be there. I'll not bring the. But she is not ready to leave. We could not put that shabby old chest of drawers upstairs where the bureau is now. Elizabeth could have that and welcome. I have always wanted to get rid of it. Suppose they come when we are doing it. Mrs. Slater, I'll fasten the door. Get your coat off, Henry. We'll change it. So Henry is more worried. Henry is saying, when we are shifting, if the sister and family comes, they'll notice that we are already shifting certain things from our father's room. So that doesn't look good. So Mrs. Slater is very cunning. She says that she'll bolt the door, front door, so that once they reach, they will knock the door and we'll come to know it before. I'll run up and move the chairs out the way. So they are very eagerly and very swiftly shifting things from their father's room to their own room. Victoria appears dressed according to her mother's instructions. Victoria, will you fasten my frock up the jack? Mother, Mrs. Slater, I'm busy. Get your father to do it. Mrs. Slater hurries upstairs and Henry fastens the frock. She doesn't have any time to spare for her daughter, so she is very enthusiastic. She is very eagerly going and moving things from upstairs, from her father's room to her room. What have you got your coat? Why have you got your coat off for father? Mother and me is going to bring grandfather's bureau down here. Victoria, are we pinching it before Aunt Elizabeth comes? So she is very clever. Victoria is asking them, are we pinching? Are we going to steal things before our Aunt Elizabeth comes here? Henry is shocked to hear from her child. No, my child, Grandpa gave it to your mother before he died. So he doesn't want his daughter to know that they are stealing things from their father's room. So he just says that no, we are not stealing things from his room. Grandpa has already given things to your mother. We are just shifting those stuff from his room to our room this morning. Victoria says. Henry, yes. Victoria, he was drunk this morning. So Victoria is very clever and she is pretty sure that Grandpa will not give these stuff to her mother. So she says that, oh, Grandpa might be drunk this morning if he has done so. Hush, you mustn't ever say that he was drunk now. Henry has fastened the frock and Mrs. Slater appears carrying a handsome clock under her arm. Mrs. Slater, I thought I would fetch this down as well. She puts it on the mantelpiece. Our clock is worth nothing and this always appealed to me. Oh, she is such a pathetic creature, Mrs. Slater. What is she doing? She went to take the bureau and come down, but on the way she's noticed a beautiful clock that belonged to her father. So she wanted to own that also. She took that and she came down. That is Grandpa's clock, Victoria says. Mrs. Slater, shut, be quiet. It is ours now. Come. Henry, lift your end, Victoria. Don't breathe a word to your aunt about the clock and the bureau. So Mrs. Slater threatens her daughter. She asks her not to speak a word about the table, about the office table, bureau and the clock. They carry the chest of drainers through the doorway. Victoria to herself, I thought we would pinch them. After a short pause, there is a sharp knock at the front door. So somebody has already come and somebody is knocking the front door. Mrs. Slater, Victoria, it is your aunt and uncle. You are not to open the door. So let me set this in our room and after that you can go and open the door. So Victoria peeps through the window. Victoria, mother, it is them. Mrs. Slater, you are not to open the door till I come down. So Mrs. Slater is upstairs now in her father's room. So she has to come down and pretend that she is mourning about her father's death. Then only Victoria can open the door. Let them knock away. There is a heavy bumping noise. Mind the wall, Henry. Henry and Mrs. Slater and Flush stagger in with a pretty old-fashioned bureau containing a locked desk. They put it where the chest of drawers was and straighten the ornaments, etc. The knocking is repeated. So they are repeatedly knocking the door, and these people are not bothered. They just keep the bureau in their room, and then after that they go and open the door. Did we knock much plaster off the wall? Mrs. Slater, never mind the plaster. Do I look all right? Just watch Elizabeth's face when she sees we are all in half mourning. Take this and sit down. Try and look as if we had been waiting for them. So they are all big players. They are, after stealing certain things like bureau and clock from their father's room, they are just sitting and trying to pretend themselves as half mourning. Henry sits in the armchair and Mrs. Slater left of the table. They read ostentatiously. Victoria ushers in Ben and Mrs. Jordan. The latter is a stout, commonplace woman with an impassive face and an irritating air of being always right. She is lowering a complete and deadly outfit of new mourning, crowned by a great black hat with plumes. Ben is also in complete new mourning, with black gloves and black round his hat. He is rather a jolly little man, accustomed to be humorous and at present trying to adapt himself to the regrettable occasion. He has a bright, chirpy little voice. Mrs. Jordan sails into the room and solemnly goes straight to Mrs. Slater and kisses her. The men shake hands. Mrs. Jordan kisses Henry. Ben kisses Mrs. Slater. Not a word is spoken. Mrs. Slater furtively inspects the nave mourning. So these people are already well prepared. Mrs. Jordan and family are already in their new mourning dress. They have bought new black dress for the funeral ceremony. They have worn it and they have come to Slater's room. So they exchange kisses with each other. That is how they greet each other, and they inspect how the mourning is done in this house. Mrs. Jordan, well, Amelia, and so he is gone at last. So what is the first sentence that is coming out of Abel Merriweather's second daughter? Oh, he is gone finally. Oh, we have got rid of that old fellow. That is what they think. Amelia is Mrs. Slater. Her name is actually Amelia and her husband's name is Slater. That is how they are using Amelia at one place and Mrs. Slater at another place. Mrs. Slater, yes, he is gone. He was 72 a fortnight last Sunday. So he is for 72 years. She sniffs back a tear. Miss Jordan sits on the left of the table, Mrs. Slater on the right, Henry in the armchair, Ben on the sofa with Victoria near him. So they are all sitting there pretending to be sad, but they are not actually sad. If they are sad, how will they say those kinds of words? Now, Amelia, you mustn't give way. We have all got to die sometime or other. It might have been worse. Mrs. Slater, I don't see how. It might have been one of us. It's taken you a long time to get there, Elizabeth. Mrs. Jordan, oh, I couldn't do it. I really couldn't do it. Couldn't do what? I couldn't start without getting the mourning. Glancing at her sister, Mrs. Slater, we have ordered ours, you may be sure. I never could fancy buying ready-made things. So this Mrs. Jordan and family have bought a ready-made black dress and they have worn it and then come to see their dead father, and they are not even going and seeing their dead father. They are sitting at the near the table and they are chatting. The sisters and the husbands and their husbands are chatting. So they are chatting about their dresses, and Mrs. Slater says that she doesn't want to wear any ready-made black dress, so she has ordered for a custom made black dress. Mrs. Jordan, no, for myself it is much a relief to get into the black. And now perhaps you will tell us all about it. What did the doctor say? Oh, so Mr. Jordan asked, what did the doctor say? Usually if one passes away, then you are supposed to call a doctor to confirm that the person is dead. But this later didn't even bother to call the doctor. She already confirmed herself that her father is dead. Oh, he's not been near yet. Mrs. Jordan, not been near? Didn't you send for him at once? Didn't you call for the doctor at once? Of course I did. Do you take me for a fool? I sent Henry at once for Dr. Pingle, but he was out. I sent my husband for the doctor, but then he was not at home, so he couldn't come. You should have gone for another Mrs. Jordan, oh yes, it is a fatal mistake. Mrs. Slater, Pingle attended him when he was alive and Pingle shan't attend him when he is dead. That is the professional etiquette. So every time when Abel Merriweather was unwell, we used to bring the Dr. Pingle, but now he is not near home, so he couldn't come. So we don't want to call any other new doctor now. Well, you know your own business best, but Mrs. Jordan, yes, it is a fatal mistake. Mrs. Slater, don't talk so silly, Elizabeth. What good could a doctor have done? Look at the many cases of person being restored to life hours after they were thought to be gone. So Mrs. Jordan is worried. A doctor has not confirmed that her father is dead. So she has heard a lot of stories of people coming back to life after hours of confirming that they are dead. If something like that has something like that will happen for her father, she is very much worried. Henry, that is when they have been drowned. Your father wasn't drowned. So such cases happen when people drown to death, when they drink a lot of water and get drowned in river or water body and die. These things happen. Ben, humorously, there wasn't much fear of that. If there was one thing he couldn't bear, it was water. He laughed. So he is such a funny fellow, and even when his father-in-law is lying dead, he is cracking jokes and he is enjoying. Mrs. Jordan pained. Ben is crushed at once. So Mrs. Jordan gives a sharp look at her husband and her husband mutes himself. Mrs. Slater, I am sure he washed regular enough, Mrs. Jordan. If he did take a drop too much, then we'll not dwell on that now. Mrs. Slater, father had been merry this morning. He went out soon after breakfast to pay his insurance bill. My word, it's good thing he did. So in the morning he was very active. The father was very active. Abel Merriweather went out to pay his insurance amount. Mrs. Jordan, he was always thoughtful in that way. He was too honorable to have gone without paying his premium. So he didn't pay his last premium. So that is a miss we had. If he had paid that premium, that money will also be ours. So they are very much bothered about money. They are too materialistic, money indeed, and they have been cruel to their father. Mrs. Slater, well, he must have gone round to Ringovel's afterwards, for he came in as merry as a sandboy. I say, we are only waiting Henry to start dinner. Dinner, he says. I don't want no dinner. I am going to bed. Ben, ah, dear, dear. And when I came in and found him undressed, sure enough and snug in bed. Mrs. Jordan, yes, he had a warning. I am sure of that. Did he know now? He spoke to me. Did he say he had had a warning? Henry, no, he said. Henry, would you mind taking my boots off? I forgot before I got into bed. Mrs. Jordan, he must have been wandering. No, he had got them on all right. Now, Mrs. Slater. So they are very cool. They are least bothered about their dead father. They are not even visiting him once. They are not even going to see him once. They are just enjoying themselves. So they had dinner and they are going to sleep. And when we had finished dinner, I thought I had taken up a bit of something on a tray. He was lying there for all the world as he was asleep, so I put the tray down on the bureau, on the chest of the drawers, and went to waken up. He was quite cold. So Mrs. Slater is describing how she found her father dead. Then I heard Amelia calling for me and I ran upstairs. Of course, we could do nothing. He was gone. There wasn't any doubt. So they found the person very cold. They found Abel Merriweather very cold, and that is how they confirmed that he is dead. Mrs. Jordan, I always knew he had gone sudden in the end. Mrs. Slater, well, will you go up and look at him now, or shall we have tea? What do you say, Ben? Mrs. Jordan, it is her father, and she is not even going upstairs and having a look at him. She is asking her husband. So he is not very particular in seeing the dead person. Mrs. Jordan surveying the table. Well then, if the kettle's nearly ready, we may as well have tea first. So Mrs. Jordan doesn't want to see her dead father. She wants to have tea. Henry, one thing we may as well decide now, the announcement in the paper. So they are deciding about the obituary column that is to be put in the newspaper. Mrs. Jordan, I was thinking of that. What would you put? Mrs. Slater, at the residence of his daughter, 235 upper so and so. Henry, you wouldn't care for a bit of poetry? Mrs. Jordan, I like never forgotten, it is refined. So they are discussing about the obituary column of their father. So they want to make it very impressive, very literary, and so that people likes it. So they are discussing about what kind of poetry to be inserted in the obituary column. Henry, yes, but it is rather soon for that. You couldn't very well have forgot him the day after. Mrs. Slater, I always fancy a loving husband, a kind father, and a faithful friend. So they are discussing taglines for the obituary column in newspaper. Ben doubtfully, do you think that is right? Henry, I don't think it matters whether it is right or not. So see the sentence, a loving husband, a kind father, and a faithful friend. They are least bothered about their father. They didn't have a good relationship with their father, and they are inserting these kinds of words in the obituary column. So so Ben asked Henry, is that right? That line seems to be very genuine, but we didn't have any genuine relationship with our father or father-in-law. Then is that right? So Henry is not bothered if it is right or wrong. Mrs. Jordan, no, it is more for the look of the one thing. So they are more bothered about the look, what other people will think seeing the obituary column. Despised and forgotten by some. So these are all part of poetry that they discuss about, and they want to put it in the paper. Mrs. Jordan, well, we'll think about it after tea, and then we'll look through his bit of things and make a list of them. There is all the furniture in the room. So let us have tea now, and after tea we'll discuss about the obituary column and all. So we have to divide the things also. He has lot of furniture in his room. So let us divide those valuable things that he has in his room. Henry, there's no jewelry or valuables of that sort? Mrs. Jordan, except his gold watch. He promised that to our Jimmy. So she is very eagerly saying that she has already her father has already given it to our son Jimmy. Mrs. Slater, promised to your Jimmy? I never heard of that. So Slater is not she doesn't want to give it to Jimmy. So she says that I have never heard of that. Mrs. Jordan, oh, but he did, Amelia, when he was living with us. He was very fond of Jimmy. Mrs. Slater, well, I don't know. But anyhow, there is his insurance money. Have you got the receipt of the premium he paid this morning? Mrs. Slater, I have not seen it. Victoria jumps up from the sofa and comes behind the table. Victoria, mother, I don't think Grandpa went to pay his insurance this morning. Mrs. Slater, he went out. Victoria, yes, but he didn't go to the town. He met old Mr. Tattersall down the street and they went off past St. Philip's Church. So Victoria is known, she knows what her grandpa has done that day, so earlier that day. So she says that he didn't go out to pay the insurance premium. He went to meet a person and they went to the church. The public house that John Shorrock's widow keeps, he is always hanging about there. If he hasn't paid it, do you think he hasn't paid it? Was it overdue? I should think it was overdue. Something tells me that he has not paid it. So they are very much worried now. He hasn't paid the insurance premium, so they will not be getting that much money. Then they scold their dead father, the drunken old beggar. He has done it on purpose just to annoy us. So he has done it purposefully to disturb us. So that is how their way of talking changed according to the situation. After all I have done for him, having to put up with him in the house these 3 years, it is nothing short of swindling. So Mrs. Slater says that during the last 3 years she has put up her father at her house. So this is nothing less. I had to put up with him for 5 years. So before, prior to those 3 years, Abel Merriweather used to stay with Mrs. Jordan. Are you trying to turn him over to us all the time? But we don't know for certain that he is not paid the premium. I do. It's come over me at once that he hasn't. Mrs. Slater, Victoria, run upstairs and fetch that bunch of keys that's on your grandpa's dressing table. So Victoria, Slater is sending Victoria upstairs to her grandfather's room to bring keys. In grandpa's room? Mrs. Slater, yes. Victoria, I don't like to go there. Mrs. Slater, don't talk so silly. There's no one can hurt you. Victoria goes out reluctantly. So she is not interested to go and see her dead grandfather, but Mrs. Slater forces her to go and get the key. We'll see if he has locked the receipt up in the bureau. When in where? In this thing. He rises and examines it. Mrs. Jordan, where did you pick that up, Amelia? It's new since last I was here. So they notice the bureau that Amelia and her husband has brought from their father's room. They examine it very closely. Henry picked it up one day. Mrs. Jordan, I like it. It is artistic. Do you buy it in an auction? Henry, where did I buy it, Amelia? Yes, at an auction. Ben despairingly, oh, second hand. Mrs. Jordan, don't show your ignorance, Ben. All artistic things are second hand. Look at those old masters. Victoria returns very scared. She closes the door after her. Victoria, mother, mother. Mrs. Slater, what is it, child? Victoria, grandpa is getting up. Ben, what? So Victoria informs that her grandfather is getting up. So these people get a shock. Mrs. Slater, what do you say? Victoria, grandpa is getting up. Mrs. Jordan, the child is crazy. Mrs. Slater, don't talk so silly. Don't you know your grandpa is dead? No, he is getting up. I saw him. They are transfixed with amazement. So they have confirmed that their father is dead and they can't even imagine of him returning to life. Ben and Mrs. Jordan left off table. Victoria clings to Mrs. Slater, right of table. Henry near fireplace. So they are all awestruck. They are in wonder and they can't even talk. Mrs. Jordan, you'd better go up and see for yourself, Amelie. Mrs. Slater, here, come with me, Henry. So Mrs. and Mr. Slater goes up to their father's room to check. Henry draws back terrified. Then suddenly, listen. They look at the door. A slight chuckling is heard outside. The door opens, revealing an old man clad in a faded but gay dressing gown. He is in his stocking feet. Although over 70, he is vigorous and well colored. His bright, malicious eyes twinkle under his heavy reddish grey eyebrows. He is obviously either grandfather Abel Merriweather or else his ghost. So these people are struck. They are not even able to move. So they think that it is their grandfather's ghost. So the daughters and their husbands are not able to digest the fact that their father has not died. So they are not ready to accept the fact. So they think that it is not their real father, it is his ghost instead. But actually what happened is that Abel Merriweather was tired when he came back from outside. So he was so tired that he fell deep asleep, and he was very cold because of the sweat. But his daughter, Mrs. Slater, was not ready to accept that. She was eager to see her father dead. So that is why at once she saw him sleeping deep asleep and found him cold. She just confirmed that he is dead. So she didn't even take the opinion of a doctor. She didn't even call any doctor to confirm. She was not at all bothered. She was just bothered about the father's assets and belongings. So the daughters every time waited for their father's death and not about his well-being. They never loved him. The two daughters always fought against each other to get rid of their father. So let us have a look at the characters in detail. Here about the characters. So the important character in the play is Abel Merriweather. Mr. Merriweather is about 70 years old. He is bright and vigorous with a twinkle in his eye. He believes in eating, drinking and being merry. He is frank and straightforward. He takes a wise decision of disowning his children and start making his life more comfortable by remarrying at the age of past 70. So at the end of the play, that is not given in your text, but after that he remarries and then gives all his property to his new wife. So he is an easygoing old man. He is a widower for a long time. He has learned that the world, he's learned about the world and its multiple phases. He is a very practical man. It has been a pain for him to accept the fact that he was unwanted for his daughters. But he realizes the cunning and quarrelsome nature of his daughters, and he gets married to another lady to spend his life fruitfully. Next character is the eldest daughter of Abel Merriweather, Amelia Slater or Mrs. Slater. She is the eldest daughter of Mr. Abel Merriweather. She is a greedy, stingy and materialistic woman. Mrs. Slater can stoop down to any level to satisfy her greed. You remember that chappal scene, she doesn't even leave the slippers. She is a dominating wife and a woman prepared to do any amount of straight talking to get her own way. So she had been looking after her father for the last 3 years, and she is just waiting for his death. She doesn't even confirm that her father is dead. She just decides on her own that he is dead, but he is not actually dead, as we know. She pinches the bureau, the slippers, the clock, etc. during her father's death, and these are all examples of her hard-heartedness. The second daughter is Elizabeth Jordan. So she is sister of Amelia Slater. Like her sister, she too had no feelings for her father. nor for her sister. She is stout, complacent, impassive, and has an irritating air of being always right. She is also hard-hearted as her sister. Next is Henry Slater. Henry Slater is Amelia's husband. He is more sensible than other characters in the play. He gives the logical suggestions while talking about the obituary notice to be given in the paper. But he is a henpecked husband. He follows whatever is said by his wife. He is a weak and short man. He is not commanding at all. Next is Ben Jordan, husband of Elizabeth Jordan. He is a funny man, jolly little man with a chirpy voice. He is accustomed to be humorous, but at present he is trying to adapt himself to the regrettable situation. He doesn't know what to speak and when to speak. Victoria Slater is a clever little girl of 10. She is an obedient child, very fond of her grandfather, and has genuine feelings of love towards him. She is a precocious child. The presence of this young girl in the play comes as a whiff of cold breeze in the stuffiness generated by the quarrelsome adults. So she is aware that her parents does not have any real feelings towards her grandfather, and she is not that innocent also. She has gentle feelings for her grandfather, and she is aware that her grandfather will not give his properties to her parents. We have a vocabulary given here. So the first word is vigorous. Vigorous means strong. Next is stoop. Stoop means lower one's moral standards so far as to do something wrong. Stoop to lower standards. Okay. Stoop means bend. Vulgar is immoral. Straight talking means being very blunt, straightforward, too straightforward. Stout means fat. Complacent means very happy, very pleased and satisfied with their own achievements. Impassive, not showing any emotions or feelings. Scrupulous is extremely honest. Obituary is notice of death that we give in newspaper. Henpecked husband means dominated by wife. Chirpy is cheerful. Accustomed means used to. Humorous, very funny, causing laughter. Precocious child means having developed certain abilities at an earlier age that is not usual or expected. So she looks like a matured girl. She is a precocious child. She is aware about whatever is going on in her house. Scrupulosity is guilt about moral or religious issues. Now the moral value of the one act play, The Dear Departed. Houghton focuses on the degrading moral values of middle class family in Britain. We understand that the family relations should not be based on terms of money or materialistic things, but relations should be very genuine, full of affection. Now even in India we know that there is a rise in old age homes. India has around 103.9 million elderly people abandoned. Many senior citizens are abandoned by their children. Over 71% of senior citizens are victims of abuse by family members. That is published in a survey in Economic Times. During lockdown, many old people were abandoned because lockdown has reduced family income and they don't have to spend their income on old people. So this should not be the situation in future. We have to be caring for our elders. And here I have given the summary of the play Dear Departed. You can go through this, you can take screenshot of this, you can have a read. The summary is continued in the other page also. So have a read and try to write a appreciation on your own. So that is all for today. I have given certain references here. You can refer to those pages as well. Thank you, students. Thank you for listening.